Good morning, everyone. I am coming on here for a little bit of a different video, sort of like a vlog style, chitty chatty, how I healed my hormones and how in my day-to-day work I help other mamas, other women to heal theirs. And I thought it would be fun to do it as kind of like a chatty, get ready with me type video. I have 10 tips for you, some of which you might have heard loads of times before if you watched any of these kinds of videos before, or if you're on your own sort of healing journey, and other ones might be brand new to you. So I'm very excited to share them with you, and I thought I would just like sit down. I've got my coffee here, which leads me into point number one, and we would dive straight. So firstly, to say, if you haven't been here before, thank you so much for being here. I normally share pregnancy, trying to conceive, birth, breastfeeding, a little bit about gentle parenting type content. And so this is a little bit outside of my normal video content, but in fact, the bread and butter of what I do is working as a lactation consultant, doing sort of private one-to-one work and birth work. And so I have a lot of clients coming to me looking to conceive their babies and having difficulty either in trying to conceive or finding that they are having issues hormonally that they need support with to try and get there. And so this would very much be the sort of advice that I would be offering to them. So while I am not a homeopath or a naturopath or a doctor, this is very much evidence-based support, but also support that has worked very much for me personally. In fact, one of my very first videos that I did on here was how I balanced my hormones to have my cycle return post miscarriage, but also while still breastfeeding my first baby. So yeah, this is something that I'm really passionate about. I think that every woman deserves this information to be able to understand their bodies better, to be able to understand their cycles better, and to be able to optimize their wellness. So diving straight in, I wanted to talk about caffeine. And I wanted to talk about the impact that it has on our adrenal glands, the impact that it has on our bodies, and I suppose that overall message that we want to be sending our bodies in order for them to thrive. We need to be sending a really clear message that says you are nourished enough and you are safe enough to support a pregnancy, to be well, to have energy, to thrive. And so when we're talking about the things that can pull from that nourishment, they can pull from our stores, our resources, our nutrient, it can lead to nutrient depletion. Stress, caffeine, other things we're going to talk about now can be contributors. So one of my first tips is to avoid naked caffeine, and certainly not naked caffeine first thing in the morning. So I love coffee, I love the taste of coffee, but I will always make sure that I have like a really decent breakfast first, and then I'll drink my caffeine afterwards. And it's made a huge difference in terms of not having that big spike and then crash, which of course is sending that message to our body that says, whoa, we are in stress mode, we are in fight or flight mode here. This is not a safe place to be. So the first thing would be A, cut down on caffeine, but also see about the way that you drink it. Removing caffeine from first thing in the morning can be the only thing that you need to do in terms of balancing your hormones. And certainly it's one of the things that I really look at if you're a mama after loss. There is some evidence around caffeine intake and it increasing the incidence of miscarriage, in particularly early miscarriage. So it's something that I always look at because we've had several losses in this family, and so when I'm trying to conceive, it's normally the first thing to go. So normally a good way to know if you're sussing me out on Instagram, if I'm back drinking my mushroom coffee again, that we are back on the trying to conceive train. I realised after filming that first point, I've got all my notes for next videos up here, that actually I forgot to address some of the signs and symptoms that you could require hormone balancing, or that it might be helpful or supportive to you to look at that. And there are so many different ways that you can look at it. You know, our hormones are not just about our cycles, but it can be that we are having maybe irregular, maybe longer cycles. Maybe our cycles are heavy or painful. Maybe you're having a lot of PMT symptoms that we know will be outside of the normal. Our periods should not, despite what we see everywhere and what we're taught from a young age, they should not be painful. So if you're having painful cycles, that would be another one. If you're having maybe acne, maybe you've got a loss of libido, maybe you are feeling very low, so depression, maybe you're having some GI symptoms, difficulty trying to conceive, maybe you've had struggles with maintaining pregnancies. All of these things can be related to our hormones. So coming back to that first point again, I want to elaborate on that and talk about stress. So when I'm talking about stress, we're talking about, that fight or flight hormone. We're talking about that response that takes place in our body that says we are not safe right now. We are not safe, we are not nourished, we cannot support our body in functioning optimally. And when I'm talking about the stress and the impact on our bodies, I'm not just talking about, like stress in work or stress in relationships. Maybe you've been through a big breakup, or maybe you've got friendships that aren't very smooth at the moment, or you've had a big row with your mum. I'm talking about the way that we mind ourselves. I'm talking about inherently how our bodies feel day to day. And that includes looking at things like exercise. So, certainly adding in things like acupuncture can be really great for stress reduction, meditation, but also looking at the way that we exercise. So the way that our body perceives certain forms of exercise can be as a stressor. So looking at if you ordinarily would love to do like a HIIT workout where, you're raising the metabolic rate and dropping it down low again, or you're doing really intense workouts, that may be addressing it instead, saying, okay, I'm going to do some weight training, which we know has a beautiful impact in particular on those of us who are struggling with insulin resistance, which of course is related to our hormones. Or maybe some gentle yoga. Maybe you're talking about coming back to that steady state cardio, so doing some long walks again. The way that we exercise tells our body and sends our body a message that either says we are safe and we are nourished and we are strong and healthy, or it says we need to be stressed. We don't know, our body doesn't know the difference between a HIIT workout, a stressful day at work, maybe an ominous message from our partners, and knowing whether or not there is a bear coming into our cave, or our tribe are at risk from a crocodile coming in, who knows, but our bodies can't tell the difference. And so we have the same reaction in going into that fight or flight response as we would in it being that scenario. Does that make sense? So our bodies have not changed a whole lot despite our world changing drastically. So tip number 2 would be look at overall stressors. Look at how you can really bring down that stress response. Look at how your breathing is day to day. This should really be a separate point, but at the moment I have been really looking into the way that we breathe. So there's sort of 3 different ways of breathing. We can breathe into our chest. That sort of hyperventilation sometimes happens here. Maybe you're using your shoulders a lot when you breathe. Maybe you are belly breathing, so you're breathing down into your belly, which causes a lot of pressure on our pelvic floor. Or maybe you're doing that lovely 3D breath, wherever you feel on your ribs. Sorry, my top's opening here. You should feel your ribs expanding as you breathe, which is optimal, really. But what we need to focus on is how we are breathing and the message that it sends our bodies. So we can come back to a 3D breath. Maybe you need to wrap something around your middle, just practice breathing into your ribs, allowing that rib expansion to happen to tell our bodies that we are safe. Our breath is the quickest way that we can de-escalate our nervous system from a place of panic to a place of calm, which is why it's so important in the way that we teach hypnobirthing. But at the moment I am doing my body ready method professional training, and there's a huge segment that we work particularly focusing on the importance of breath. So perhaps I should have had that as a bonus point, but come back and look and examine at how you breathe in your day-to-day life. So following on from the coffee train of thought, where we are not having naked caffeine, equally we need to look at the way we are eating. Are you eating enough calories? Are you eating enough fat? Fat in particular is so important because it is necessary to build the hormones that our body requires to thrive. So hormones cannot be built. The building blocks of hormones cannot be made if we don't have enough fat in our diet. So looking at the types of fat, looking at the amount of fat, looking at the amount of calories, our bodies need to be given calories in a way that says we are safe. We are getting enough calories here to manage. When our body has that scarcity feeling, that feeling of, oh, there might be enough food here, i.e. if we're doing intermittent fasting, which I know is all the rage, depending on what world you're living in, but certainly in my life, there's a lot of people talking about intermittent fasting and, you know, skipping breakfast and, you know, having like a certain fasting window. But as a woman, what happens in that scenario when we are skipping a meal like that is our cortisol, so our stress levels, spike. And our body goes, okay, there's a famine here maybe. We need to hold on to all of that fat. And we're a little bit nervous about how this is going to look for us. So our body sort of goes into this state of holding on to whatever fat we can, particularly around our middles, around our bottoms, around our hips, to hold on to it as much as we can, because we don't know when we're next not going to be able to feed our babies, to get to the next meal. So looking at the way that we eat, perhaps you would consider introducing breakfast again, or at the very least nudging it forward and eating smaller meals more frequently. And what we're doing then is we're sending a message to our body that says we are well, we are nourished enough, we are safe enough to support ourselves and to have our hormones working in a way that can support a pregnancy, which is really where we want our bodies to be. That's how when we are having it, I love to ask about periods and how they're looking, and, you know, the colour and the consistency of the blood and the frequency and the duration and the regularity, because it tells us so much about how our body is doing. Because whether or not you're trying to conceive at the moment, if your cycles are regular, pain-free and nice and healthy, that's a really good indication that your body is doing really well. Okay, so I'm realising that I'm going really slowly through these, and this is going to be a very long waffly video. I might have to break it into 2 points, but the next one, which I'm really realising now because I've got them written down, is only point 4, is addressing our sleep. So we want to be looking in particular, you know, this is another stressor that we can be placing on our body, but what happens at nighttime is our body has an opportunity to just repair. And really the production of hormones happens overnight. And so if we are not sleeping well, if we are sleeping poorly, so we're having restless sleep, if we're waking up an awful lot, if we have got very small babies who are waking, if we are interfering with our circadian rhythm by the introduction of blue light at nighttime, if you're doing nighttime scrolling like I have been known to do in the past, if you have not been exposing yourself to natural daylight, ideally before 10 a.m, so even just sitting outside with your breakfast or your morning drink can be so helpful. That is the best way that you can settle your circadian rhythm so that you can go into a deep restorative rest, so that you can ensure that your hormones are flourishing. If you find that you are waking quite frequently at night, if you find that you are very tired during the day, I will share the link to another video that I did all about sleep for mamas and having energy as a mama down below, because there's some really awesome tips in there. I think I need to go back and actually look at that video myself, because there's a couple of really good tips in there. One of the things I suppose in particular to look at would be if you are moving your body, making sure that you are doing it earlier on in the day as opposed to very close to bed, looking at your nutrient intake, in particular magnesium, looking at the impact of blue light, so either blue light blocking or trying to stay off screens for the last hour before bed, getting into some sort of a rhythm so that you are going to bed and waking at the same time every day. So many other tips on that video, but sleep particularly important when it comes to our hormones. Okay, the next one you're not going to like. A, for your pocket, but also because I know so many people talk about it and it's probably you might be overhearing it, but that is the impact of non-organic sprayed foods. In particular, we're talking about that Dirty Dozen, which is really helpful actually, just if you're not familiar. Print it out, stick it on your fridge, or have it as easy access when you're doing your food shop. In terms of them being endocrine disruptors, so they interfere with the way that our hormones function. So if you are trying to reset your hormones, if you're on this journey of healing, trying your best to, even just with the dirty dozen, come back to certain fruits and veggies being organic until such time as you reset, even just a window of time. Even just with the dirty dozen, you might notice the difference straight away, but a lot of research, and I'll share some of the papers down below, has shown the impact of these non-organic foods on our hormones. Okay, a little change of scenery, but also, sorry for dropping you, getting ready for the gym, because I'm going to get some me time in, and I'm going to try and film a little bit in between. So the next tip on my list is regarding fragrances. When we talked about organic versus non-organic foods, we talked about them as endocrine disruptors. So aspects, facets of the way that we live our life that can interfere with hormone production and regulation. So too are fragrances, whether that is in your detergent, your washing detergent, whether that is in your perfume that you spray on your body every day, maybe it's in your body lotions or bath bombs or oils, things like that. Maybe it's fabric conditioners or like room sprays, all of which, when they contain an artificial fragrance, interfere with our body's hormone production and regulation. So, if you're on this healing journey, one of the quickest and easiest things that you can do is cut out your fragranced deodorant, change your detergent to a non-bio, eco, non-scented, maybe a baby's one. Similarly with your lotions, either just use straight up coconut oil or consider changing to the non-scented versions, generally in the baby aisle. Really easy way to do that. And you can also change out your shampoos and conditioners for the baby friendly ones, the unfragranced ones. There's a couple of really nice ones out there now. If you're curious about which ones I use, I can leave them linked down below. But that can be one of the first things to go, and it can be a strange one because you realize all of a sudden, or certainly I used to wear a DKNY like Be Delicious, lovely appley, fruity scented perfume every single day. And when I stopped doing that, once I had babies, because for me, I wanted them to smell me and not smell a perfume, I realized just how scented our whole world was. And it really made me question. There are so many beautiful natural scents out there. Like, what is the smell of clean or fresh? Does it have to be artificial? But our bodies are so clever. We are designed to be self-cleaning. We don't require perfumes to overlay on that. And removing them might feel a little bit weird at first. You might, love the routine or the rhythm of having a little spritz of perfume, or, spraying your room maybe before you go to bed or when you wake up and when you've done your fresh sheets. And at first your laundry smells weird when it doesn't have a perfume on it, I'm sure. But it can be the quickest and easiest way to remove some big things that impact on your hormone health. So tip number, 7? Cut out the fragrances, both home and okay. So coming back to our diet a little bit, for those of us who are maybe estrogen dominant or testosterone dominant, in particular our estrogen, if we have an excess, the way that it moves through our body and almost like swept through our system to be removed is through non-digestible fiber. So if you are looking to balance your hormones, increasing your fiber in the form of cruciferous veggies, fruits with the skins on, so lots of like broccoli, cauliflower, lentils, beans, you get the idea. We are allowing for that sweeping brush to come through our system and pick up any of that excess estrogen to allow our bodies to come back to that state of equilibrium. So tip number 8, increase your veggie intake. Okay, and the next one might come as no surprise, just in general in terms of wellness, but if you have been partial to having half a glass of wine with your meal or going out on a Friday night with your girlies, see what you can do to reduce your alcohol intake. There are so many lovely like non-alcoholic versions of cocktails and no secco and things like that nowadays that really it's very easy for you not to drink and either not to be obvious or for you to still have that lovely tasty beverage. There is so much evidence that points us towards alcohol impacting our hormones, both for men and for women. In particular, alcohol in terms of an immediate effect spikes our estrogen. So this is oftentimes where we have, you might notice that in a night out, you will always have somebody crying. And that's because those female hormones are so spiked that we get this hormone dump. And of course that goes on to interfere with our hormone regulation in long term as well. There's also some lovely evidence around fertility and alcohol consumption. Again, I'll try and leave a link to some of these articles down below if you want to go and research them yourself. But if you were trying to balance your hormones, if you're on a healing journey, cut out the alcohol. Flying through these tips now. Next tip. Tip number 9, number 10. How many points did I have? I think I had 10 plus a bonus one. And this is going to be a quick one. If you wear fake tan, false tan, cut it out. There has been some more recent evidence that suggests that dye, that pigment that stains your skin, can impact those of us who are trying to conceive. And again, when we think about trying to conceive, we think about our hormones functioning optimally. That interferes with how we make and manage our hormone function. So cut out fake tan. That's the easiest way forward. I'm not saying you should be laying out in the sun either, but certainly if you're on this healing journey, try and avoid as best you can. Okay, 2 final points. This one is around inflammation. When we have inflammation in our bodies cannot function as well as possible. If there are certain foods that you notice trigger inflammation in you, see what it's like to cut them down. To cut them down or to totally avoid them for a period of time. Some of the biggest triggers here for a lot of people are gluten and dairy produce. This is not the same for everyone, and this is certainly not me saying that everyone should cut out gluten or everyone should cut out dairy. See what feels good with your body. If you notice that on maybe days where you don't eat gluten, you feel less of that brain fog, you maybe can function with a little more clarity in your day, you have more energy, then it's likely that your body is a wee bit sensitive or doesn't enjoy processing that protein, that gluten protein. So see what you can do to observe your body closely. See what you can do to reduce the inflammation in your diet. Lots of lovely vitamin C fruits and veggies, vitamin C high fruits and veggies. Maybe consider a turmeric supplement to really bring down the inflammation in your body. Reducing stress will do that naturally. Increasing your sleep, moving your body in ways that are nourishing to you will also help to reduce your inflammation. But overall, when we reduce inflammation in our bodies do really well. So see what you can do to support yours. And then my final tip, and I put this as a bonus tip because I don't feel like this is necessary for everyone. However, it can be really helpful to consider supplementation. And there are 3 supplements in particular that I will recommend relatively frequently, depending on the scenario, to clients who I work with. And most of these you might notice are very much a sort of supportive supplement. So they work, what is the word? Oh my goodness. Adaptogenic. So they work based on the needs and requirements of the person taking them. So they aren't like a medication which has a blanket function for everyone. So these 3 supplements that I love to recommend are maca, which is really high in zinc, but also really high in B vitamins. Ashwagandha, which is another adaptogenic or nootropic supplement. It's a mushroom. And then the last one that I love to recommend is Agnus castus, also known as Vitex or chaste berry, which is really beautiful for in particular for building up that beautiful, thick uterine lining, for if you're looking in particular for fertility, for your little baby to nestle into. So wonderful for fertility support, and really nice for if you are struggling with maybe acne, hormonal acne, if you are struggling with your cycles, to help really just balance them out. And again, another adaptogenic herb. So chasteberry, otherwise known as vitex or agnus castus. You can get it in a tincture or in a dried herb form. The next one is ashwagandha. And then the final one then is maca root, which but can be taken as a powder. It tastes kind of chocolatey. I like to add it into if I'm making like brownies or smoothies, that kind of thing. Not all of these will be necessary for you, but I will leave the ones that I am currently taking down below in the little description box. I hope you found this helpful. This has been a long-winded video, one that I wanted to make for ages. And let me know if you're trying any of these things in the comments section, and let me know if you've had any success. Thank you so much for watching.